So here we are on the Madigan Line. In 1939, Cecil Thomas Madigan organised a crossing of the Simpson Desert with 9 men and 19 camels. They left Nurie on the 25th of May and proceeded via Charlotte Waters and Andado to the junction of the Hale and Todd rivers, and then turned east across the centre of the desert to reach Birdsville on the 6th of July. It was, as Madigan said, not an expedition of enormous moment, but the mystery of the sand ridges that attracted him greatly. His expeditionary work was hampered by a lack of basic data, particularly maps, but his capacity for organisation and survival in extreme conditions more than compensated for this. It is perhaps the last classic Australian exploration adventure. So join us as we cross.
I'm just on my way to Lisco to catch up with Scott, and then we are heading off in the desert. I hope I have everything packed. Bit different packing arrangement than I usually have. I pretty much removed temporarily my rear seats to save a bit of weight given the fuel we need to carry.
This trip really came together on very short notice. Scotty from Pat Callahan and Southern Sky Images called me 2 weeks before the trip and said, "What are you doing? You want to do a double Simpson crossing?" The plan was to cross the Simpson east-west via the Madigan Line. Somewhere in the Simpson we then would catch up with Dan Woods, one of Scotty's friends and the leader for Waypoint expeditions. We're traveling the Madigan Line in the east-west direction, which is the opposite Madigan did, and supposedly more difficult, as we have steeper ascents and more gradual descents. To give you an idea what Madigan experienced during his trip, Dan Wood from Waypoint 4x4 expeditions will narrate excerpts from Madigan's journals. I also greatly appreciate the images provided by C.T. Madigan's granddaughter. Good morning. Day 1 or day 2, however you want to see it. We stayed the night at Byrock. Stayed there last year as well. Bush camping, $10, hot shower. What more do you want? Food wasn't that good actually. Last time we had a pretty good steak. Yesterday I had a steak sandwich with old soggy fries. Yeah, that wasn't recommendable. Now we are on our way to Berg. Yeah, we're just driving here between Berg and Cunnamulla, and that's definitely Kangaroo Alley here. I'm just glad that we don't drive that at night. Sometimes we had on a stretch of 100 meters, probably 7-8 carcasses on the road. Second night here at the Windora Caravan Park. 50 million flies. Anyway, there's the ladies' toilet for us. At the last campground we missed the sign, so we both went the ladies' toilet. No ladies though. The flies. So there are the flies. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, quite a few. Friday morning, 8:15. We just left Windora probably half an hour ago. And now we on our way to Birdsville. Just filled up at the Birdsville servo. Scotty is still getting some stuff done. Just to give you an idea of the flies. For Madigan, Camp 22 was nearly the end of the journey, so let's have a look how he felt.
Camp 22. The aftermath of the wet weather had made the Air Creek system quite wet and quite muddy, and difficult for Madigan's party to traverse. He took a new set of bearings directly eastwards and they left the river system, striking directly towards Birdsville. They were given a right proper welcome. It was a wet and muddy journey over the next few days, but they made it to Birdsville, then just a town of 6 houses. They were given a right proper welcome and they stayed waiting on the rains before continuing the next phase of their journey.
We passed Madigan's Camp 22 and headed a bit further to camp at the old Annandale station.
camp spot for the night, close to Madigan Camp 21 and the Annandale ruins.
On the 2nd of July 1939, Madigan stopped at Old Annandale Station. He noted that to his astonishment, while the roofs and doors had been taken away from the houses, it was still furnished. Beds, wardrobes, closets, chest of drawers, dining table, books, seats, even explosives, all covered with dust and weather-beaten. It looked like the occupants one day just got up, left the premise, to never to return.
There's a tragic story associated with Annandale. Old timers tell the story of two children, Sally, 7, and Roberta, 5, who lived on this lonely outback station. Their father had departed to work away for a few days, and when their mother had finished making them breakfast and was doing the dishes, she just collapsed and died. Sally quickly realised that something terrible had happened. Outback children were no strangers to death. She covered her mother's body, then gathered up a water bag, a handcart, and called the family dog. They set out for the nearest homestead, 23 miles away. She led little Roberta by the hand, and the girls trudged across the sandy wastelands until the water bag was empty. They tied the dog to a stunted tree and continued on their way. When the father returned 2 days later, he found his wife's body and a search was organised. The girls' tracks were followed for more than 27 miles and then they vanished. Only the dog tied to the tree remained. No trace of the girls was ever found.
Before his epic trip, Madigan did several reconnaissance flights to map the area and get an idea of the terrain, so he would have seen a similar perspective as we see here from the drone. It was quite amazing to see such a big billabong on the fringes of the Simpson Desert. After watching the beautiful sunrise and having brekkie, we made our way further into the desert in the hope to catch up with Dan either today or the next day.
Camp 21. While they were travelling, it rained again and the river system made it very hard going, very wet and very slippery. They crossed the main tributary of Eyre Creek and the going became a little easier, but towards the end of the day it began to rain more heavily, so they raised camp just shy of Annandale Station. Rained the following day, so they passed time reading Shakespeare's King Henry IV and playing 500.
After several years on BFG KM2s, I recently swapped over to Nitto Trail Grappler. At this stage I'm still experimenting with the tire pressure and running 21 in the rear and 17 in the front.
Camp 20 basically lies in the confluence of the Mulligan River and Eyre Creek. So on their approach, Madigan noticed that the country began to change quite significantly. The sand ridges became very low, much more rounded and much flatter.
On my previous desert trips, I only came across a single dromedary from the far distance. So I was elated when we saw this herd of dromedaries, which let us come very close. Grasshoppers everywhere.
Huh? Cat?
Unfortunately, cats are the biggest killer of native wildlife in Australia. It is estimated that tens of millions of native animals are eaten by feral cats each night, and they have contributed to the extinction of more than 20 mammal species. So seeing cat feces in the wild is never a good sign.
Saturday around 11 o'clock. We left camp probably around 9ish. We just passed Madigan Camp 20 and now are really in the dunes. I think we a couple of years too late though, because there's certainly a well-defined path here.
Scotty's antenna mount rattled loose, so we did some minor little bush repairs.
So that's Scotty in his fly outfit. We all have lunch in the car, because when you go out here you have around 30 seconds and then I reckon around 2 million flies are on you, on your food, on whatever. So we taken refuge in the car for lunch and even got our fly nets out. I've never seen it that bad. But
when Madigan arrived at Camp 18, Marshall filmed the whole arrival. It's showing the making of the camp and Jack's dog actually getting off his tucker box, where he sat most of the journey. Camels are not a native species in Australia. In 1940, several camels were ordered by the Phillips brothers. However, only one of the camels survived the sea voyage. It was called Harry and was used for inland exploration by pastoralist and explorer John Ainsworth Horrocks. He became known as the man who was shot by his camel. His kneeing camel moved while Horrocks was reloading his gun. It discharged and shot him in the finger and face, and he died 21 days later.
Camp 17. This was border day. This is the day that Madigan fully expected to reach the Queensland border. He estimated they would reach it around 5 p.m, and that time came and went, and he felt a little disappointed. He was sure they'd crossed the border, as they had made a good 17 miles that day. He kind of had hoped to impress by finding border marker number 86, but that was never found. He would, however, be reminded in Birdsville that this portion of the border was actually never fenced. In fact, he ended up 1.8 kilometres short of the border. It was just a couple of dunes away, and they would cross it the following morning without ever knowing.
I thought I hold a little speech about the flies. The flies are plentiful, and if I haven't mentioned, the flies are really plentiful. But I reckon there are two types of flies. There are the flies, the homies, who sit in your car, and whatever you do, the only way to get them out is to kill them. And then there are a bit more adventurous flies. They follow you in the car, but as soon as you open the window and give them a little hush, they are out. So homies, I've got actually not too many at the moment with me, but I certainly would be going into the history books as a serial fly killer. There got to be around 20 somewhere lying on the floor here. As soon as you get out, the flies are there. It takes around a minute to find you. I don't know, they must be hiding all behind the bushes here, and as soon as you jump out, they're on you. I'm not sure what else they do here really, because there's nothing else around.
The Cruiser is a fairly heavy vehicle, so with the KM2 tires, even on very soft sand, I usually didn't have to go lower than 23-24 psi. That includes very soft sand like Ninkala rocks on Fraser Island or the Henty Dunes. However, with the new Nitto trail grapplers, with a stiffer sidewall, it turned out I need lower tire pressure. I attempted these dune with 21 psi, and that was still too high. I aired down to 15 psi, and after that everything pretty much was tackled fairly easily. All my previous desert trips were with the Defender TD5. So in the Landcruiser with the 1HD FTE engine, it was very nice to actually have a far more powerful engine and much more low down torque available when it was required. I have a conversion to the A750F 5-speed automatic transmission in the Cruiser with a Nomad heavy duty valve body. I have to say, in auto mode the gears were held pretty well. There was no constant up and down shifting, so most of the stuff really I could drive in auto, but I also played around with the manual mode, and obviously that works anyway. The transmission temperature gauge really never went above 85-90 degrees, no matter in auto or manual mode. So guys, this is the end of episode 1 of our epic Madigan crossing. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Here's a quick preview what will happen in the next episode. Number 1, you find out why my bonnet is often open on the Cruiser. We also caught up with Dan and you will see why we need to rig a winch cable below his vehicle. Hey guys, all my videos are self-funded, and the advert revenue doesn't even cover one tank of fuel. So if you enjoy my videos, it would be greatly appreciated if you could support me on Patreon. This will also give you early access to most of my videos.